days I've ever gone without talking to him. It's devastating.
My company works on the river. I have just found a dead body. I believe it to be Riley.
We've confirmed that it is Riley Strain.
We know that Riley was possibly texting and communicating with multiple people. Again, we don't know the exact people.
This was a horrible tragedy, but that there is no criminal wrongdoing.
Riley Strain's family is now suing his fraternity, alleging wrongful death. The lawsuit is demanding that more than 30 brothers be held responsible for Strain's fatal night of drinking. Also, we're looking ahead to actor Gary Busey appearing in court this morning. He's facing charges for allegedly groping 3 women at a movie convention. And we're taking you into the courtroom as soon as the hearing begins. Plus, what comes next for the former person of interest in the disappearance of missing Pitt student Sudiksha Konanki? We'll have the latest on Joshua Rebe being back home in Iowa and the remaining questions on the ground. Plus, an OnlyFans model is being charged with murder after an alleged fetish act goes terribly wrong. Her client was wrapped up like a mummy. But is this real-life mommy being overcharged? It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Monday morning to you. I hope you had a great weekend. It is time for Opening Statements. I'm your host, Julie Grant. I see the shows like Coffee and Court. We get all warmed up in the morning together and ready for the big day ahead on Court TV Live. And oh my goodness, is it going to be a big day. Grab that coffee right now. It's time for my opening statement. A big step closer. We are a big step closer to justice for California Fire Captain Becky Marodi. You know, she was stabbed to death in her home back on February 17th. And my friends, we got a big break in the case happening over the weekend. Her wife, the prime suspect, was located and arrested. Police say that Yolanda Marodi fled from San Diego to Mexicali, where she was captured and has been returned to California to now face murder charges. If you've been following this case of the killing of Becky Marodi, you know that her wife has killed before. That's right, Yolanda Marodi killed her ex-husband by stabbing him to death in San Bernardino County. She served prison time from 2004 until 2013. And with Yolanda Marodi having been in the wind for the past several weeks, I have no doubt that case investigators have been digging into her past, and surely they will compare the stabbing homicide that she pleaded to with the stabbing homicide that she's currently charged with. I hope and pray that her arrest brings Becky's family some peace in knowing that the suspected perpetrator is finally behind bars. Captain Becky Marodi dedicated her career to serving other people, to helping other people, to saving lives. And that's how she's going to be remembered. She's going to be remembered as a real-life hero. And now prosecutors will be serving up the appropriate justice for her murder. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
We're sitting on a couch, and a couple buddies were playing video games, and someone from the kitchen was talking about it, and that's when it was stated, the comment.
When what was stated?
The comment was that from Nicole Rice, it was that she had did it, that she had killed Anita.
Nicole said that?
Yes.
In North Dakota, we've got the state's case continuing in the toxic roommate murder trial for Nicole Rice. Court's going to start up at 9:30 a.m., and we will take you there when it does. In Massachusetts, we've got a hearing for Dr. Ingolf Turk. You've heard his name, right? He was a very well-known robotic surgeon, and now he's a defendant. He's accused of murdering his wife, Kathleen, after her body was found in a pond near the couple's home. In New Jersey, we've got an arraignment scheduled for actor Gary Busey as well this morning. That's right, Gary Busey in court today, and that is our top story. The movie star is set to be arraigned on sexual assault charges that stem from an incident at a horror movie convention. You may remember this making news back in 2022. Well, it took a while, and now he's been formally indicted. The 80-year-old is now charged with multiple counts of sexual contact and 1 count of harassment. Police say it all happened at the Monster Mania convention in New Jersey. Busey was scheduled as a featured guest for this 3-day-long event, and 3 women came forward to police alleging that Busey had groped and touched them inappropriately during a meet and greet. According to court documents, quote, they reported they were in a photo shoot area during the Monster Mania event and were having their picture taken with the defendant. During the photo shoot, the defendant placed his face near one of the victim's breasts and asked her where she got them before attempting to unlatch her bra strap. Gary Busey denies all of the allegations. His hearing is going to start up at 9 a.m. Eastern, and Court TV has permission to broadcast it, so we're going to take you there live as soon as it starts up. So what can we expect today? Let me bring in our legal eagles. One of them practices in New Jersey. Attorney Mario Gallucci is with us, and so is attorney Tommy Pope. Well, great to see you both this Monday. Mario, let me start with you, please. What are you expecting to happen at this? What should we expect to happen at this formal arraignment this morning?
So good morning, Julie. Today's just the beginning of a long process. He's being arraigned. I think it's being done by video. He's going to be out in California. But the thing that's unusual about this case is that he was charged in 2022 and he's being arraigned 3 years later. Generally in New Jersey, you would have what's called a pre-indictment conference or an early disposition conference, and none of those seem to have taken place. So behind the scenes, something must have been going on to try to resolve the case. And obviously, since he's being arraigned today, that did not happen. So today's going to be important. We're going to have the charges revealed. Initially, they were all 4th-degree crimes. Let's see what's on the indictment this morning.
Mario, thank you for that. I know a lot of people wondering, why so long, why the lag, and maybe we'll get some information on the record today, so thank you for that. And Tommy, let me go to you for something else that I think some people may find unusual. You may not, given your experience. Gary Busey, we know, lives in California. He doesn't live in New Jersey, and the court's given permission for him to appear via Zoom for this hearing this morning. Would you speak to that aspect of it, please, Tommy?
Again, going to what Mario said, I don't know what's happened behind the scenes, and maybe this is the next step that both sides have recognized and agreed because they couldn't come to any kind of understanding. But I won't say it's that unusual. It's going to be interesting at what stage the warrants have been served and the indictments have been processed. That maybe he's got an attorney that's accepting service because you have extradition issues sometimes in bringing people in when they're charged. They may have set up almost like a turn yourself in equivalent, where you're going to literally be available to the court, bond out, because I'm assuming, that's the stage we're at now. And so, it looks a little unusual, but, again, I guess they're doing what they have to make sure they can get him under the jurisdiction.
Tommy, thank you for that. So many of us are just wondering, how's he going to act at this hearing, right, Mario? I mean, he's such an animated guy. I mean, at the 90s, who was a bigger movie star than Gary Busey? I mean, he was everywhere. And we know he had his struggles, right? He struggled with substance abuse. He's had his share of problems. And now he's TikToking. He's all over the place making videos and having some strange moments. Mario, what do you think? How can we expect this to go?
So as an attorney, you always try to counsel your client that when they're going to be in front of a court and in front of the public, that they should behave appropriately, dress appropriately. It doesn't always work because sometimes clients have, a mind of their own, and you try to calm them down. And this is going to be particularly interesting because I believe his lawyer is actually going to be in the courtroom down in Camden County, and Gary's going to be in California. So to rein him under control could be quite interesting. I'm sure that his attorney has had many conversations with him about acting appropriately in a courtroom. Although it's a Zoom, it's still a courtroom. So hopefully he was counseled to act appropriately.
Yeah, right, Mario. You wonder if he would have somebody with him or something. Tommy, your thoughts on that? He's kind of a wild card, I think, in terms of what he may do.
I used to laugh when we first got PowerPoint. We started getting technology in the courtroom, and I was so nervous. I'd print every slide. I'd have sock puppets. I brought to mind when Mario was talking, I hope that attorney has a mute button, where he can just,
he can mute him.
Pause it or something. And, I know, actually we've done mediations in Zoom, where you have breakout rooms. So maybe they'll have some way to keep him under control, but he'll make it interesting. I'm sure, based on his past history.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. I mean, and I have to wonder. Okay, is this actually going to go? Are we going to see this one moving forward, Mario? These charges, in the grand scheme of sex assault charges, we know that there are many different types of assaults, some of them aggravated and really, really bad. Here, this is on the opposite end of that spectrum, and this is inappropriate touching that's being alleged. Do you see this actually proceeding, or do you think we could see this one worked out really quickly, Mario?
So the fact that it took 3 years to get to an arraignment says that they tried to work it out, and they were probably unsuccessful. And I think that today, when it gets arraigned, we're going to learn what the charges were. Initially, he was charged with 4th-degree crimes, Julie, and as you just noted, those are the lowest indictable offenses in New Jersey. You can only do up to 18 months. Most people don't. I don't know if he has a prior criminal record, but on a case like this, he's what you call PTI eligible, or pre-trial intervention, which is a sort of probation, where if he does that, he will have his record, he'd have the conviction sealed and have no record whatsoever. That all depends on if he has a prior criminal record, of course, but today is going to be very interesting, and I do not think that this is going to go away very quickly.
That's such great insight. Mario, thank you for that. And just kind of a follow-up, many states have their version of the program you just described in New Jersey, a diversion program where first-time offenders without a record, with a low-level offense, can get a second chance, and everything gets sealed, and, it's a wonderful redeeming program. Does the fact that here it's in criminal court this morning tell you that maybe for some reason either he doesn't want the program or the program didn't want him, or do they have to get past this stage this morning in order to have the option?
So generally, when I have a client that's looking at charges of an indictable offense, which this is in New Jersey, and it's a 3rd or 4th degree crime, I have them immediately apply to the PTI program. If it's a 1st or 2nd degree crime, then you have the opportunity to ask the prosecutor's permission to apply to PTI. And if they deny that, you can appeal that to the judge. So Gary's lawyer more than likely had him apply to PTI, I would assume. I mean, that would be the basic thing to do, apply to PTI. If he was accepted into it and Gary rejected it, that's why we're here. So it looks to me, I don't think this is going to end. If it takes 3 years to get to this point, I think that Gary Busey is going to try to fight this out and clear his name.
Mario, this is really helpful. Thank you for that. I wonder, okay, so it's either he rejected it or wasn't accepted. It's going to be a fight ahead, it sounds like. Mario Gallucci and Tommy Pope, you guys are the best. Stand by for more questions, please. We're going to hit a break. And by the way, we're going live at 9 a.m. to Gary Busey's hearing. So be sure not to miss that. Here's what's coming up next, though. First.
This was a horrible tragedy, but that there is no criminal wrongdoing. There's nothing to stop the district attorney's office in the future if there's new evidence that comes to light.
A year after Riley Strain was found dead in Nashville, his family wants his fraternity and many of his brothers to be held responsible. But first, a shocking story out of California where an OnlyFans fetish encounter turns deadly. We'll talk about whether the dominatrix has been overcharged.
You got 9 months of testimony, right? 4.5 hours, you come back and say, we got a verdict.
Not guilty of the crime of murder.
They're going to blame all this on you.
In this case, the jury was sequestered for 9 months.
Oh, my God.
These people were too beat down to even try to fight for their own conviction.
Trial and Error. Why did O.J. win? A Court TV original series. Season finale Sunday night, 8 Eastern and Pacific. Only on Court TV.
Welcome back. Now for what's trending in true crime. An OnlyFans fetish encounter ends with a murder charge. Michaela Reilerstem, a mother of 3 and an OnlyFans model, is the accused. She's accused of killing a male client of hers during one of his sessions. She went by the name Ashley Sincow, and she spelled Ashley A-S-S-H-L-E-Y. That was her name on OnlyFans, and police in California say that she fatally suffocated a male client who hired her to engage in some fetish acts. The alleged crime happened on camera as well. The deceased is Michael Dale. He asphyxiated, police say, after asking Reilerstem to wrap him up in saran wrap, covering him like a mummy. He also requested to be bound by duct tape and have women's boots glued to his feet. This is according to court documents. He also had a plastic bag over his head. Now, the plastic wrappings were left in place for a total of 8 minutes time while the OnlyFans model was busy recording something else. She was on her phone, apparently, police say, and not paying attention. Police acknowledged that she did call 911 and told officers that it was her first time doing BDSM. Law enforcement says that there's no evidence that Dale ever requested that she put a bag over his head. The OnlyFans model is now charged with second-degree murder, and she's pleaded not guilty. So our question this morning, are the charges fair, or is she being overcharged? Let's bring back in attorney Tommy Pope and attorney Mario Gallucci, and welcome in private investigator Manuel Gomez. Wow, this case is a doozy. Apparently, this client wanted to be wrapped up like a mummy. It went very bad. Is murder appropriate here for a charge? Manuel, would you start us off, please, with your thoughts?
Well, good morning, and I think that murder is not appropriate for the fact that she was recording the matter, and if she wanted to commit murder, she wouldn't be recording it. That's one. Second, there is a law in New York, and it is in other states, called the Good Samaritan law, which actually protects a person when calling 911 when they're performing emergency medical help on a person from being charged with murder. Now, I think on this case, and I know it varies in every different state, what the parameters are for that law, but I think this would be relative in this case. For the fact is, again, this was a fetish. Unfortunately, this happens all the time in New York. People die from sexual acts like this all the time. Especially one of the most famous actors, David Carradine, died from the same thing. I don't think she should be charged with second-degree murder, if anything, at a minimum, manslaughter.
Manuel, thank you for your thoughts. Yeah, this case certainly has everybody talking. I have some additional details I want to share here. This is from, yeah, I guess this is the details of, oh, I think we went through this already. I'm sorry. I think we went through this. We already read it. I apologize. I thought I had something additional to share. I do. One additional detail. He wanted adhesive poured into his eyes, apparently, while this was happening, to seal his eyes shut. Okay, that is one additional thing. Tommy Pope, let me go to you next, please. Second-degree murder, not first degree is the charge here. What do you think, appropriate or inappropriate on the facts?
You know, again, to me, it's about the definition. I learned as a young prosecutor one thing: you charge whatever the highest possible you think the jury would consider, because in a certain situation like this, often they're going to compromise anyway. I remember charging a guy what exactly I thought he was guilty of, and of course, the jury stepped it down one more notch. Had I charged what he could have been guilty of, they'd have probably found it. But in South Carolina, it's probably some type of manslaughter. Involuntary manslaughter is actually the reckless disregard of the safety of others. And I was just brainstorming while we were talking. It almost even, you could look at the assisted suicide laws. I know that wasn't the design, but, you know, somebody helping somebody or facilitating the loss of their life. And so, you know, it may be that they're charging the highest possible and possibility of working something out. Now, to me, it is interesting. The first thing I was thinking, what did they do with the body? What did they do? But she called 911 and came clean. I think a jury's going to be hard-pressed to convict her of murder, especially when they see she's been paid to do all these strange things. And when you just added gluing your eyes shut, I just think they're going to have a difficult time.
A great insight. Tommy, thank you for that. Mario Gallucci, last but not least on this question with the charges, your thoughts, is murder too appropriate?
So Tommy's right. I'm a former prosecutor. When you indict something and you charge them, you charge the highest crime possible that you think a jury, that you could get a conviction on. And it leaves you wiggle room to negotiate. I mean, everything is plea bargained. In California, they do have an involuntary manslaughter law, which is a combination of both reckless or careless conduct. And in this case, that may be more appropriate. And by the way, the sentence on involuntary manslaughter in California, I think, is a maximum of 4 years, where murder, you could end up in prison for life. So do I think it's overcharged? Yeah, but the prosecutor, I think, is doing what they think is appropriate in the case and charging what they believe would be the top count. Is it going to end that way? If it went to trial, I doubt it, but I think this is a case that'll probably be resolved prior to trial.
Yeah, great points. And Mario, little known fact about you that you were a prosecutor. I should have thought, I always say the best criminal defense attorneys have first been prosecutors. Thank you for sharing that little nugget. All right, let's talk about the other aspect of this. Tommy, you hit on this, that she was being paid, right? So this is a paid transaction, I suppose you could call it. Michaela Reilersdam ran a stripping business, and she ran the OnlyFans page as well with her husband. He was all part of these business endeavors. And on her social media, she proudly shows off her husband and her 3 kids. The OnlyFans model's public persona is very different to the online presence where she markets herself as a seasoned sex worker.
This is the year of business. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, and we get that. I've never felt that everybody was meant to be a stripper forever. I know that this is something where you get in and you get out. You need people in your corner to help you grow. I did, and so I know what that means for our girls. I know what that means for our guys.
All right, now police say that the victim in this case paid Reilersdam $11,000 to do this at his home, this BDSM session. And so we're wondering, with respect to Ms. Reilersdam's husband, her business partner, does he have any liability or responsibility in any way in all of this? I'm going to go around the horn the other way this time. Mario, I'll start with you, please.
Well, although this is not probably your typical marital relationship, I don't see how he has any responsibility for the death in this case. I mean, he basically books his wife to do these appearances and engage in these activities, but you know, he wasn't there. At least I don't think he was there at the time that this occurred. So how would he know that this man was in any danger? So I don't think he has any responsibility criminally to this action.
That's a great point. Probably no criminal liability, which makes me think, what about civil liability? Tommy Pope, you're the perfect person to answer that question, being a civil lawyer as well. What do you think?
It's ironic, Mario just teed it up for me. That's that former prosecutor thing going. But I think that, I was thinking, oftentimes, I mean, I've got a case I'm trying in a month or so, and basically it's a dump truck driver, but we're also looking at the company he worked for and like a failure to train. And as macabre as that sounds with this OnlyFans stuff, if it was truly a business, there, from a civil standpoint, there's a possibility that they are brought in and respondeat superior, let the superior reply that he could be equally responsible. It's even stranger that they're married. It would almost make more sense if it was truly a separate business partner. But I think definitely there's the civil potential there. I was thinking, Julie, it's really going to come down, if it gets to the courtroom, of what the jury thinks about the individuals. I mean, it is so bizarre in so many levels. Do they think that, the victim not deserved it, but is, kind of, you're taking your own risk, or, do they blame her? There's plenty of judgment morally to go around for this whole crowd.
Right. Oh, Tommy, you got me thinking. That's an excellent point. Jury selection. Like, what would that be like when the attorneys would have to ask these prospective jurors if they're familiar with BDSM, if they have a strong disapproval of it for some reason, if there's a bias, you know? So, yeah, this is just, this case is so sad and would be incredibly uncomfortable if it goes. Manuel Gomez, would you take us home here? In terms of the husband, what would you want to know about him? If you could talk to him, any thoughts you have on the investigation, whether there's anything to explore with regards to him?
Well, I would think that he is liable for the fact that he's marketing his wife and that he's not properly training her to perform these acts in a safe manner. So I think that's where that company will be liable in this case, and he should be held accountable as well. Mm-hmm.
Civilly, you're saying, right? Yeah, I bet there's going to be a civil lawsuit. Yeah, great points you've all made with this one. Gosh, this is awful. Okay, Manuel and Tommy Pope are coming with us. We're grateful for that. And Mario Gallucci, we're grateful for your time on the show. I know we have to let you go and get off to court. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. And still to come this morning here on Opening Statements is the search for missing Pitt student Sudiksha Konanki over. We've got the private eye who worked Natalie Holloway's case weighing in next. Fly.
A lot of times when an autopsy report takes a little while to be released, it makes individuals somewhat suspect that maybe there's a criminal investigation.
Riley Strain's family is fighting for accountability. They filed a wrongful death lawsuit against his fraternity. Is it right? We'll discuss it straight ahead. Officials believe that the missing Pitt College student in the Dominican Republic may have died by drowning.
There is no doubt that she is not in the water, in my professional opinion.
It's honestly so terrifying. I don't know her, but it feels close.
Josh Rebe has been named a person of interest.
This sounds like Natalie Holloway.
Even though they're innocent until proven guilty, sometimes it's like a word and not action coupled by it. So will he have a normal life? It's going to take a long time.
Welcome back. This morning, we're shining a spotlight on the disappearance of University of Pittsburgh student Sudiksha Konanki. Wednesday, it'll be 20 days since the 20-year-old went missing in the Dominican Republic. Her case remains, though, somewhat of a mystery. Last week, we know her parents wrote a letter to officials asking for her to be declared dead. In a tearful statement obtained by WKYC, Konanki's father tried to accept that his daughter may never return home.
It is with deep sadness and heavy. No. And heavy heart that we are coming to the terms with the fact that our daughter has drowned. This is incredibly difficult for us to process. We kindly ask you to keep our daughter in your prayers.
The man believed to be the last person to see Konanki alive, Joshua Rebe, has been the focus of headlines and lots of speculation. He's no longer considered a person of interest in the case. And let me be clear, he was never a suspect. He had never risen to that level, according to authorities. Now, Joshua Rebe's back home in Iowa, and he's got to adjust to his life now. In a statement to Daily Mail, Tina Rebe, Joshua's mom, described her son since returning home, saying, quote, "It was a really sad situation. Josh is resting up right now. We're keeping to ourselves right now. It's been a very long travel, and he's going to be returning to school as well." We know that. Gosh, this is hard for everybody, isn't it? And I think it's just leaving so many of us true crime watchers unsatisfied. You know, where does this case go from here? So many people are comparing it to the case of Natalie Holloway. And I'm so pleased to welcome back on the program the private investigator who worked Natalie Holloway's case in Aruba, TJ Ward. TJ, great to see you again.
Thank you very much. Enjoy being here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So it just feels like it's too soon to many people watching this for a death declaration. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. This is way too soon. There's a lot of things that need to be done. the entire country is still on board with this, and I'm getting a lot of calls. I have a lawyer in New York now who's contacted me, who practices in the Dominican Republic, who's asked me if she could reach out along with me with a family, that she would invite me to go with her to Virginia to meet the family and try to get them motivated enough for me to go find their daughter.
That would be great, TJ. Gosh, I have a look at the search efforts I want to share with everyone. For anybody who's wondering where officials looked, they searched the beach and the surrounding area. They used drones, helicopters, divers in the water. They used police dogs as well. They had boats out on the water too. More than 300 agents were involved in that search, and the FBI has been on the ground there in the DR assisting with the investigation. All this reporting is according to the New York Times. I also have a look at how she disappeared. We know that 4:15 a.m. she's seen on surveillance footage. 4:55 a.m. the group that she was with are coming back from the beach. 5 women, 1 man. She wasn't in that group. At 8:55 a.m. Joshua Rebe comes back from the beach. No signs of Sudiksha. 4 p.m. is when her friends report her missing to hotel staff. TJ, for anybody that might think, oh, so it's 18 days today since March the 6th when she went missing. Has too much time passed to possibly bring her home?
No, not exactly. This is way too soon. I just received from this company that's been monitoring the internet. They sent me videos of her in the bar when she got sick, and there's a possibility that her drink was spiked.
Wow, when we saw her on the video getting sick in the bushes. Oh, my.
Yep. So there's a lot still to play out with this. If you recall, a week ago, the father went to the police and said, y'all need to expand your search out outside the water and start looking in other areas. And I believe, again, I don't believe she's in the water at all. There's something else that transpired, even though this person that was there with her is now a person of interest, or not exactly being called by law enforcement a person of interest. But the mere fact, we cannot rule things out that still need to be looked at in this case. You know, I'm very sincere about wanting to get with the family and go to the Dominican Republic on their behalf and help them try to find their daughter. I've spent 18 years in the disappearance of Natalie Holloway and have never given up. And ironically, you know, now he's finally confessed to some parts of what transpired.
Right.
And so we can't, this is way too soon. You know, 3 weeks, her being missing. This is a complex case that somebody needs to be there on their behalf to help law enforcement, to represent them. And I am totally wanting to get with them and help raise the money for me to go there on their behalf to help them find their daughter.
TJ, tell me, do you think there's a possibility that someone could have seen her in an intoxicated state on the beach with Rebe after the big wave crashed and after he says he saved her? And the Konanki parents are very satisfied with that account, that he saved their daughter and they both were back on the shore, on the ground. But he was out of it. He was choking on water, passing out. Who knows what kind of state Sudiksha Konanki was in. Is it possible somebody could have seen her in that state and taken her?
Absolutely. That's what is on my mind, and to look at the same way that what happened to Natalie Holloway. Somebody removed her, and we think off the island. And obviously it's still being looked at. 20 years later, we're still trying to figure out who, what, where, how, and when this happened. Right. And obviously we never found Natalie's body. But again, this is way too soon for this case, and it needs to be looked into, and they need to have somebody that knows how to deal with the island. You know, my first impression when I saw this case come up, it reminded me of Aruba. Just exactly. So if the family would allow me to get on board, I'm very sincere about wanting to help them. And there's a lot of people know that I want to do that, and a lot of people are sending me information as they have this week.
Yeah, you worked relentlessly for the Holloway family. I know Dave Holloway's become a dear friend of yours. You've shared with us. And as you noted, Jeroen Vandersloot did confess to killing Natalie in recent years. And so there was some closure. I just have to wonder, is Sudiksha Konanki alive somewhere? Was she kidnapped? Does somebody have intentions for something like sex trafficking or something of that nature with her?
Something, again, I don't believe she's in the water. Something else has happened, and we need to find out what that other something is.
Right. TJ Ward, you're awesome. We're going to keep talking with you. We're going to keep the conversation going because many true crime watchers feel that this case is far from over, and I know you're leading the charge to continue the advocacy for this young lady. Thank you so much. And what we're going to do is hit a break here. Coming up next on Opening Statements, here's what we've got.
We know that Riley was possibly texting and communicating with multiple people. Again, we don't know the exact people. We don't know the exact timeline.
We've got Riley Strain's family now suing his fraternity. That's right, suing the brothers in his fraternity after that fatal night of drinking. Is it right? We'll talk about it. And in less than 30 minutes, actor Gary Busey will be in court to be arraigned on charges of inappropriate sexual contact with 3 women. We'll go there live in minutes.
Lori Daybell,
already convicted for the murders of her children.
Doomsday Cult mom is now lawyer Lori.
She's representing herself.
On charges of conspiring to murder her 4th husband.
She said, I can murder you now.
She really thinks she's equipped to try this case.
She appears very sure of herself.
I have real trial experience.
It's going to be a strange trial. We'll see how it plays out.
The Cult Mom Conspiracy Trial, next week following jury selection, only on Court TV.
Now, for what's tipping the scales, the family of a college student who vanished and later was found dead during a trip to Nashville is now suing his fraternity over his death. Riley Strain attended the University of Missouri and traveled to Nashville last March with his Delta Chi brothers. On the evening of March the 8th, Strain was kicked out of Luke Bryan's bar for being too drunk. Security cameras caught him walking away, but then he disappeared. His family was desperate to find him.
It's just as hard on them as it is on us.
And right now, we really are focusing on
bringing Riley home.
His last point.
He's my best friend. He's everything.
Strain was found dead 2 weeks later in the Cumberland River. According to the medical examiner, his manner of death was drowning and intoxication. Or that was the cause of death, rather. The manner was accidental. Now, his family claims his death was a result of the carelessness and the negligence of the fraternity. So was Riley Strain's fraternity responsible in this case? I mean, these brothers are being sued and named as defendants. Is it right? Let's talk about it. I want to bring back in attorney Tommy Pope and private investigator Manuel Gomez. Okay, Tommy, do you think the family has a strong case here?
The first thing I did when we talked about it was I wanted to look and see whether Tennessee or even Missouri, according to whether the acts would have taken place, was contributory negligence versus comparative. For your viewers, if it was contributory negligence, in many places, 1% wrongdoing on my part prevents me from being successful in a suit, but it appears both places are some type of comparative. So the question's then going to become, you know, he's of age, I assume, that, you know, did he choose to do these things? And as long as there was other responsibilities, again, it's tough. You know, I was reading something where they were saying he wasn't even wanting to go on the trip, and they kind of cajoled him to going. It's going to be interesting, and I think it's going to be extremely fact-based, whether there's anything that can ultimately stick or gets beyond a summary judgment, which is kind of like the direct verdict in our civil courts.
Mm-hmm. Right, Tommy. Yeah, appreciate those points. I know. I was somewhat surprised at this. You know, I know we thought, oh, there's a possibility they may try to sue someone. But naming brothers, the officers in the fraternity, these are his dear friends. He's also a 22-year-old, so there's that, to your point about at what point is there some personal responsibility? I mean, I think everyone is so sorry that happened to him. Nobody wanted to see him drown, and nobody wanted to see this family go through losing a child. But also, where's the line between, your own free will, and other people's actions around you? Manuel Gomez, I certainly want you to weigh in. As we know, many people at first thought this was a homicide. Somebody wanted to do this young man harm, and then it turns out he was just very drunk, sadly, and fell because of the steep grade in the river. And for anybody who's been in that area in Nashville, it's close to Broadway where those bars are. Your thoughts, please.
Well, Julie, I commend the family for filing the civil lawsuit against the fraternity, because unfortunately, this happens to our fraternities around the United States, where alcohol, mass amounts of alcohol is introduced to numerous parties and all these fraternities. And this is something that happens all the time. Unfortunately, I hope that this case of this young man is an example for all the fraternities out there to follow, that they need to have accountability. I mean, that's the whole point of being in a fraternity, brotherhood. This shows there was no brotherhood. Nobody escorted him. Julie, when you see him coming down the staircase, it's a miracle this guy was able to make it to the bottom of the staircase. He's literally stumbling when he's walking. There was no brotherhood, and I do feel that this fraternity should be accountable because they were pushing the alcohol. Granted, he's 22 years of age, but you know what? We need to set an example nationwide. This is not acceptable.
Manuel, thank you for saying that. Yeah, it does make them an example, right? It does. Is there another way to go about it? Tommy Pope, I don't know if you can still hear me. Is your audio good? I hope. Okay, perfect. Just double checking. So would there be a better way to go about this, making policy changes for the fraternity rather than naming these young men as defendants in the civil action?
And ironically, oftentimes when you file a civil suit, you're throwing as big a net as possible. We talked in one of the last segments about respondeat superior, looking at who may be above that would have quite candidly, a deeper pocket. Because in civil, really financial is the only thing you can recover. And so to me, it seems and again, maybe they did it just to throw the big net, but naming individual members versus maybe the entity, kind of back to a failure to train, failure to follow the rules. I think that they probably cast too broad a net in this particular circumstance.
Tommy, thank you for that. Manuel, tell me, how do you see this playing out?
Well, I agree with Tommy. I don't think that the brothers will be held accountable, but I do think the fraternity will be. And there's no doubt in my mind on that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe the national office, wherever they're located, I believe it's Delta Chi, I believe is the fraternity. I guess we'll see what happens. We've got to leave it there for time's sake. We love having you both on this program. Manuel Gomez with Black Ops Private Investigators, and attorney Tommy Pope, and lawmaker as well. Thank you both so much for your time and your great expertise. We'll see you soon. That is all for this episode of Opening Statements, but guess what? You can watch it again. You can share it with your friends. We're here every weekday morning for you at 8 a.m. Eastern to get you all ready for Court TV Live, and that is what starts up next.